Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little black subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that black subscribe button. Really does help our audience grow, really does help our channel grow, really does help and mean more than you could possibly know. So go ahead, hit that little black subscribe button. Also, thank you to our presenting sponsor, Betfred Sportsbook and the Betfred Sportsbook app. Bet 50 on any game, get $250 in free bets. Thank you again to Betfred. Thank you again to you. Now, here is the video that you came here for. But before we get there, I do have kind of an interesting update and an interesting development from a story that I think I have been on more than anybody else. And so for people who are new to this show or are just picking up this show because of some things that I might have said or tweeted over the last couple of days, let me give you a little bit of a background, okay? So about 5 or 6 weeks ago, I was watching St. John's. They were playing a home game against Marquette. Ironically, Marquette was the team they lost to in the Big East tournament on Thursday, but this was back in early January. St. John's did what they very much often have done under Mike Anderson. They built a big lead, then they fell apart, and they ended up losing. And out of nowhere, I don't know what compelled me to tweet this, but I basically tweeted something to the effect of St. John's, Mike Anderson is not the answer. There is a Hall of Fame coach in your city named Rick Pitino. Go get him. He's in New York. He's coaching at Iona. He's still coaching at an elite level. And now that he has been cleared by St. John's, by the NCAA, there is no reason that St. John's shouldn't go get him. So I sent out this tweet, and this happens sometimes when you're just in the media. You say something, you don't realize the ramifications that it's going to have. Well, the second that I sent it out, I got flooded with retweets, comments, posts, DMs, whatever, on Rick Pitino to St. John's. Bunch of St. John's fans, what do you know? Do you think this can happen? Blah, 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 this and that. And so I bring it up because this has kind of been a pseudo topic on this show for about 5, 6, 7 weeks. I have no affiliation to St. John's. I'm a UConn alum, but I am also a college basketball fan that wants as many good programs to be as great as they possibly can. And so I've been on this bandwagon. I've been pushing it, but I'll also be blunt. From everything that I've heard, and I think I have pretty good sources on this. I mean, just because I don't break stories doesn't mean that I don't know. I'm not talking to people all the time. And the sources that I've had on this have basically said, look, Torres, you can yell and scream, and whoever else St. John's fans can yell and scream. Pitino to St. John's, it's not happening. What I've been told by multiple people up until a few days ago was that the powers that be at the school would never sign off on it. And as the powers that be, it's not just the school president, the AD, the board of trustees. There would not be enough of a consensus to bring in Rick Pitino. And so why do I bring it up? It's because I've just kind of given up on the idea. Now, we were selling our We Want Rick t-shirts. Shout out to the St. John's fans that bought them, AaronTorresOnline.com/merchandise. But we were selling them, but I was told it's not going to happen. Well, why do I bring it up? It's because Wednesday, the opening day of the Big East tournament, I had a couple very interesting conversations with some people in college basketball. About middle of the day, I get a text from a great source who has been right on everything that he has ever told me in the college basketball world. He said, Torres, I think you're going to get your wish at St. John's. And I said, what are you talking about? And so we got on the phone and we talked and we this and we that. And he said, I am hearing Rick Pitino is going to go to St. John's. It's going to happen. The powers that be have decided that they are going to make this move. And so I immediately texted somebody else who is very much in the know at St. John's. And that guy told me, I don't know where you got this from, but it ain't going to happen. So I have one source that I really trust that says, okay, this is going to happen. And then I have another source that I trust that says there's 0% chance this is going to happen. I bring it up because probably about 8, 9 o'clock Eastern time on Wednesday, I get a second text from the same source that told me like 6 hours earlier, there's 0% chance this is going to happen. That source now says, Aaron, I don't know who your first source is, but I think this thing might be happening. I think we might be going to get Rick Pitino. And so I bring it up because as of literally 36 hours ago, 72 hours ago, I did not think it was going to happen. But now I think it's going to. And so the question is, what has changed? And I want to just take you a little bit behind the curtain here on what has changed and why I don't think it's done by any stretch. but I think it's more likely than not we may get Rick Pitino to St. John's. The first reason is whether it's publicly, privately, whatever. I think Rick Pitino has made it clear. This is the job that I want. He did an interview a few weeks ago with Matt Norlander from CBS. Matt does a great job. And in that interview, he basically said, like, there's only like 10 states I want to live in. Now I'm paraphrasing, but the insinuation was if Texas Tech opens up, if Ole Miss opens up, if Minnesota opens up, and I don't think Minnesota is going to open up, but that's just a hypothetical. Like, I'm not going to live in Wisconsin or Montana or Idaho or West Texas to coach basketball. I'm just not doing that at that point in my life. And I've said on this show consistently, I've said there's only two places that he wants to be, either New York City or South Florida. Well, South Florida, Miami is not opening. So we can just go ahead and cross that off the list. And I don't know that he's going to go to the University of South Florida, the AAC, which is an irrelevant team. So that came out. And I think that kind of caught the attention of some people at St. John's. You can hear from somebody in the media that Pitino wants to stay in New York, but when he says it himself, that's a completely different deal. Maybe Pitino, he's got ties in the New York area. Is it possible he got in somebody's ear? I think it is possible. I think important people at St. John's that needed to know that this is the job he wants probably now know it. The second part of why I think this could happen, though, to me, is much more interesting. And what I think has happened at St. John's is, I think, to use a bad pun, I understand it's a religious school. I hope nobody gets offended with me saying this. I think they had a come to Jesus moment. I think the administration for weeks and weeks has said, no, this is not an option. And now the reality that you have a Hall of Fame coach in your city that wants your job and is going to leave to take another job, I think it just hit them over the head like a frying pan. Like, this is our chance. Like to me, this whole Rick Pitino situation at St. John's right now, to me, it feels like more than just hiring a basketball coach. To me, this is a university-wide, we either matter or we don't. Do we want to be a player on a national scene? Do we want people to know about this university? Or do we just want to be an also-ran in the Big East like we've been for the last 20 years? Because if we're okay just being okay, then we can go get whatever young up-and-coming head coach or washed-up old guy or whatever. But we've tried everything. We've tried Steve Lavin. We've tried Norm Roberts was the up-and-coming coach. Steve Lavin was the name that everybody knew. Mike Anderson. We tried the alum with Chris Mullen. Just think about those names. Chris Mullen, Steve Lavin, Norm Roberts. If you want to be relevant, those are not the guys that you hire. And so I think the fact that a couple things. One, this guy's in your town. Two, he wants your job. And three, and we're going to talk about this in a second, I think you have a Big East rival in Georgetown that is ready to make a move and is ready to hire Rick Pitino if you don't. And so I think St. John's has had this moment of clarity of like, if we don't get this guy, if we let this guy go because we're on a moral high ground, we are doomed to not only be irrelevant, but we are going to have to face this guy twice a year, every year, and he's going to be blunt. He's probably going to beat our brains in. And so it seems to me that that is the prevailing thought at St. John's, is that they're saying, no, if this guy, if whoever, Louisville was to hire him or Miami was to hire him or Kentucky was to hire him and we never had to face him, we could look ourselves in the mirror and say, nah, that's not the right guy for us. But if he's going to go to our conference rival and beat our brains in, then we got to make a move. And so I'm recording here at about, 7:30, 8:30 Eastern time on Thursday. St. John's has lost in the Big East tournament as the 9 seed or 8 seed or whatever they are to Marquette. My understanding is, and this stuff's always subject to change, I'm not saying it's done, but if things go as planned, I think Mike Anderson is going to be out soon. And I think the wait for Rick Pitino is on. Obviously, as I record, Iona is still in their conference tournament. If they go to the NCAA tournament, that would delay some things. But if I had to bet on it, if I had to put a percentage on it, I'd say it's like 65-35, 70-30 that Rick Pitino is going to be the next head coach at St. John's. And I would have said the opposite. I would have said 15-85 as of a week ago. So keep an eye on that. That's what I know. That's up to date. It's up to the minute. But I think the powers that be at St. John's basically sat there and said, if we don't make this move, we might be irrelevant forever. This is the move that makes us relevant. This is the move that gets us on the back pages in New York. John Jastrzemski is going to talk about it in a minute, so keep an eye on that.